For today's episode of Building Connections with Doral Talks, we're excited to welcome a very special guest, Ashton Young. Ashton brings a wealth of experience and dedication stemming from a remarkable 4-year career in the Coast Guard. His commitment to service has seamlessly transitioned into the financial world, where he now empowers others as the owner and host of Pura Vida, which is a personal podcast of personal growth, self-love, and financial literacy on his podcast. Today, Ashton will share his insights on wealth management and education, the importance of financial literacy for veterans, and how his military skills have influenced his approach to entrepreneurship. Join us as we dive into the discussion of full valuable lessons and inspiring stories. I'm your host, Betty Gonzalez. Thank you for tuning in, and let us begin. Good morning, Ashton, and thank you for coming to Building Connections with Doral Talks today. First of all, I just want you to tell us a little bit about yourself, like what's your name, even though I just said where you came from, where you currently reside at, and what made you join the Coast Guard. Let's start from there.
Oh, good morning. Well, thank you so much, Betty, for the introduction. I truly appreciate it. And good morning to anyone listening and watching. Again, my name is Ashton Young. I'm the host of the Pura Vida Wealth podcast. And I do apologize in that introduction. What was the question you said? Kind of where did my journey begin?
Where are you from? Like right now, where you're stationed right now, or where do you live now? And what made you join the military service? And then we're going to transition into from there how you got to where you are now.
Okay, sounds lovely. So I am currently in Melbourne, Florida as a financial planner. So I work with individuals, families, generally specializing in entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs with athletes, just helping them secure their financial futures. And what made me join the military was so I could pay for college. That was my ultimate reason to go. Growing up and just analyzing my surroundings and the neighborhood that I grew up in Jacksonville, Florida, and understanding, what it took to get into colleges, and knowing that, one, I didn't want a whole bunch of loans, but two, I wasn't even eligible to be approved for loans for college. So I needed another way to pay for it. And I didn't know much about scholarships or grants or any other ways to pay for it. Though I did see a lot of commercials about how if you go to the military, do 4 years, they'll pay for your college. So that's what I did. I was going to originally join the Marines, but my mom came to me and was like, let's check out and see what the Coast Guard recruiters have to say first. And, I went to the Coast Guard base, got to meet some of them, talk to them, and I ended up in the Coast Guard for 4 years.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, different people, join for different reasons, but education is definitely a big one. And I mean, that's a good choice, because not only do you actually get to get your education pay, but you get pay as you learn. And,
exactly.
and the military itself, you learn a lot. So what was your actual job when you joined the Coast Guard?
So my actual job in the Coast Guard was an operations specialist. I was an operations specialist, 3rd class, on board a 378-foot Coast Guard cutter out of Seattle, Washington, where we did fishery patrols all the way up to Alaska, and law enforcement interdiction and migrant rescue all the way down to Southern America, Mexico, and the countries down south.
Wow, that's pretty interesting. So, I mean, obviously, we don't know everything that all of the branches do. Different branches do different things. I was in the Army myself for 22, and I don't have a lot of in-depth information, what the Coast Guard does, other than I know they operate on the coast. But that seems to me like it took you away from your home for a long periods of time.
Oh, definitely. We were out at sea at least 9 months out of the year for 3 months at a time. And, just because it was a consistent working schedule.
Oh, wow. So it's almost like you're deployed, but here.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
We go to different countries. Like I said, we go all the way down to Mexico, Puerto Vallarta, Costa Rica.
And once you were there, Ashton, if you don't mind me asking, how long would you be in each port per se?
Maybe like 2 to 3 days.
It was almost like you on a cruise, but working.
If you want to call it that, I would say it was a lot. It wasn't as comfortable or relaxing as a cruise, for sure. The port calls were definitely nice, though. They were definitely a good time.
So let me envision, or maybe the viewers or the listeners can envision. So once you're in the not the cruise, but the actual, what would you call the vessel?
The ship, the cutter.
The
like
cutter.
getting
Okay.
in the way. Yeah.
Once you're there, like, do you have like 24-hour shifts where somebody's pulling duty, the other person is doing different things? I mean, I have no idea.
No worries. So it's different jobs. For my shop, I was in Combat Information Center. So pretty much our watch schedule, we would do, it depends on how many people we took with us whenever we get on the way. Sometimes people leave or we get extra help. But generally the watch schedule would be 3 to 4 hours each shift, twice a day. And then in between that, we're running drills, you're getting your qualifications, we have trainings. And so it's pretty much like a work day whenever you're not on watch, and then you go to watch. And then generally about 3 or 4 in the afternoon, the work day is over, trainings are over, and you have pretty much the rest of the day to yourself unless you're on watch. And I always did the mid shift. Well, I used to like to stand the mid shift. So my watch would generally be from 12 to 3 or 4 in the afternoon, and then 12 in the morning at night till 3 or 4 in the morning. And so that would be my 2 watches that I stand on top of like the drills and other things that would happen throughout the day.
Oh my God. Like, I'm tired. Like, right. So you were telling me you're either on watch or training, and then on watch, and then sleeping. And then watch, then training, then sleep. Okay, that's
we had a lot of trainings to go through, especially on the ship. You know, you're constantly training for fires, constantly training for war, constantly training for just all types of different scenarios and situations, flooding drills. You know, we have, regular, mandates that we have to do every single day, weekly. The only days we get off was Sunday.
Wow. And I'm pretty sure not everybody was off.
Oh, definitely. Because like you still have watch. So, I mean, you stay on watch, and then it's like, I guess it's kind of off, because when you get off your watch or your duty, depending on where you work on the ship, then you can just relax for the rest of the day.
You don't have training. So the difference on those days is that you don't have training, but you still have watch. You're always, somebody's always watching.
Somebody's always on some type of watch, for sure, in every department.
Gotcha. Oh, that's pretty interesting. I really love doing this podcast and meeting different, members of, or maybe veterans from different branches, because I learn new things. And even though I have friends and I've spoken to other people from the Coast Guard, they didn't necessarily have the job that you did. So it's just different experiences. This is even in the Army. Even though I did 22 years and work in different fields or different brigades that have different, like field artillery or the aviation, it's just a different experience everywhere that you go. So that's pretty interesting, Ashton. Thank you for telling us that. And then, so you from Florida went to Washington State or Washington, D.C. You say Washington, D.C.?
No, Washington State.
Washington State.
Yes,
okay.
Seattle.
And Seattle. Okay.
Yes.
And then so that's a big contrast. How did it feel? Because from Florida to Washington State, it's a big difference in the weather, the culture, the climate, everything.
It was a huge shift, a huge change, because again, I was 18 when I went into the military. So I'm still a kid at heart and my mindset. So, and then I drove there. So I drove from Jacksonville, Florida to Seattle, Washington. And, it was a huge change, because I was married at the time, and then my wife at the time was pregnant as well. So I not only am I away from home for the first time outside of boot camp, I'm in a whole different state, 3,000 miles away. I have a pregnant wife. I'm going onto the ship, which that was my first duty station as an operations specialist. So I'm learning, and then like you said, I'm in Seattle where I've never been before. It's a different culture, different change, different weather. So it was a huge change in my life, and I had to learn a lot, overcome a lot, just grow mentally. If I could do it all over again, I would do a lot of things differently, because it was so many things happening at a rapid pace, and I didn't mentally slow myself down in order to embrace it all and understand it all with the best possible mindset. So a lot of mistakes were made, a lot of trouble happened, a lot of, things that could have been avoided took place. And I also learned a lot. I grew a lot as well. So it was a huge shift for me mentally and emotionally.
Well, I mean, I can envision this. This is really, really, really a lot of changes, not only for you, but for the person that you were with. And then maybe feel a little bit of abandonment, not on purpose, because you didn't know when you joined the Coast Guard. You knew that you could go away, but you didn't know the realities of it, of actually going away and then leaving. So, a lot of people don't realize this, but it is very drastic. You came in for one reason, because you wanted to pay for education. Let me ask ask you, were you able to do that while you were in?
Yes. So while I was on the ship, I was taking college classes. So I completed about 90% of my associate's degree on board the ship. And then thanks to American Military University. And then when I got out, I went to Valencia College to finish the rest of my AA degree. And then I finished my bachelor's degree at UNF using the GI Bill. So I only had to take out about $10,000 worth of loans, student loans. But other than that, I finished. I was able to pay for a majority of the college just using the degree.
This is awesome.
Using the VA GI Bill.
No, this is awesome. So you actually accomplished what you wanted to accomplish, which was to get your education and not have to come out of pocket. But you gain more than just your education, right? You gain experience, and you got a brand new family of veterans now, and that you will have for life. Because once you're a veteran, that's it. You're a veteran. So okay, well, thank you for sharing that insight. It's really impressive. So you're a father now.
Yes.
A boy or girl?
8-year-old daughter. She's actually asleep.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, well let's get this going without talking too loud because I'm loud.
Yeah, no, you're fine. That's why I have these headphones on.
Okay. Okay, so you finished your service and then you came back to Florida. Now you're in Melbourne, Florida. So what got you to decide to get into, life, financial education and self-love? What happened through your transition and that got you to wanting to do this?
Just my entire life, I feel like it. As a kid, growing up in Jacksonville, Florida, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. I see you're in Doral, so you might be familiar with Jacksonville, Florida, but it's a pretty rough city to grow in. It is very crime-ridden, drug-ridden, very impoverished areas and neighborhoods. And so I just seen a lot and had to grow up early as a kid. I had to overcome a lot of adversities and just traumas. And so luckily I was blessed enough to be very good at math as a kid and then be very observative. I think being a Scorpio might have a lot to do with that, but I'm very analytical. So I will always look around to try to figure out why our environment was the way it was and why some environments were nice and clean and smelled good and you can breathe and it wasn't drama, it wasn't violence, it wasn't drugs in there, it wasn't no drunks or alcoholics or people in those neighborhoods. And so one of the things I came to enlightenment about during those times and moments is that it's due to a lack of financial literacy, a lack of personal growth, and a lack of self-love. So with that in mind, I've always had those values. I just didn't really hone in on them until about 3 years ago when I went on a personal self-love journey where I really just started focusing on learning how to love myself. And I made that a huge emphasis in 2022. I got out, I deleted social media, deleted Instagram, deleted TikTok, deleted Facebook, deleted all of my social medias. Like I'm talking about not just like log out, I deleted the accounts and everything. And I just put away it and I just started eating healthy. I started working out. I started exercising. I lost 20 pounds throughout that year. I was healthier than ever. My face was clear. I'm very close to getting out of debt. I paid off majority of my debt. I was saving money and I just really took time to embrace the values that I had come to know my whole life and try to figure out what are these values. I went to therapy. I started healing from traumas. And so I just really took the time to understand, okay, if these are going to be my values for life, then I need to understand them first before putting them out there to the world. So I started, self-love. I focused on how do I love myself? I do affirmations. I read. I go to the gym. I just do things that I feel like allows me to love myself more. And then I encompass personal growth in that, which I read a lot of books. I watch a lot of podcasts. I go to the gym. Like I said, I eat healthy. I mentally cleanse daily. I just try to do things that are going to allow me to grow mentally, physically, and emotionally. And then lastly, the financial literacy portion, I feel like brings it all together. A lot of us in life want freedom, and freedom comes with time. And unfortunately, the world we live in order to get more time, you need more money. And so the more money you have, the more freedom you have. And, they often say, oh, money can't buy you happiness. That's true. It doesn't buy you happiness. It buys you the ability to have the freedom and time to go find happiness, to go do things that make you happy, to seek out things that make you happy, to instead of having to work 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week, now you can work 20 hours a week or 10 hours a week or none none at all in a week and go do something that brings you joy and happiness, like go to the beach or travel and do things. So I feel like on that journey, it is important to acquire capital in ways and financial ways that allow you to get out of debt, pay all your bills, live happily, and still have the freedom to go find that joy, happiness, and work on that. So once I went on that self-love journey, I started coming to more enlightenment, really getting in tune with spirituality as well. I uncovered those 3 values of what I was working on, and that's why I added it to the podcast and said, okay, if these are my values, I think they may help someone out there if they understand how important these values are. And just the fact that I'm able to be an example of that, obviously I'm still a work in progress, but when I'm talking and having these conversations with people, you can see me literally just being an example of someone who's loving himself, an example of someone who's growing personally, my mental clarity, the things I share, the education I have, I don't have to fake it or pretend that that's what it is. That's exactly who I am. And then financial literacy, over time, you'll see how the concepts that I'm applying with regards to financial literacy, people will start to see how my life is changing. Obviously, like I said, I have no interest in, and I'm not materialistic, so you won't necessarily see it materially, but you'll see it in a form of, he has more freedom, or he's doing different things, or he has more time to work on his podcast. And so through so many ways, you'll see how the financial literacy concepts applies to my life.
Right. So you in essence want to be a source and want to bring out the information that you knew is lacking or is needed in the world that you were growing up. But I wrote down, you said you grew around a lack of financial literacy, a lack of self-love. What was the third one? I know you went over it, but I just want to make sure that we don't just go gloss over it. It's really important what you're saying, because I'm pretty sure a lot of people can identify with what you're saying, but probably didn't know how to put it into words.
Of course. And the third one was a lack of personal growth.
Lack of personal growth. Like people say, if you're not growing, you're dying.
Exactly. And in a lot of communities where there's poverty, it is a lot of individuals who are dying because they don't necessarily have the freedom to focus on personal growth or self-love and things like that. So, unfortunately, inside, spiritually, a lot of them are dying because it's just not saying they're not happy, so to speak, because I don't never want to take that away from people. Some people are happy where they're at, though, some people do have dreams and goals and wishes, especially when they have kids. They want things for their kids, but given the fact that they're not able to give that to them, they can possibly slowly be deteriorating on the inside.
But so let me ask you this. You know that there's a systematic issue in the communities that have the lack of wealth literacy, the lack of personal love, and the lack of personal growth. Mm-hmm. So how can we individually, or I know what you're doing, you're bringing this, but how can we bring awareness to the people that are in these communities in order for them to want to find the self-love, that want to have the literacy, in financial wealth, and then also self-love and personal growth? How can we help bring the information or maybe the interest for them to do better?
That's a great question. I feel like number one, we're already doing it, just by having this podcast in itself, given the nature of how popular podcasts are and how, a lot of people are tuning into podcasts to find those values. Like they say, they may not be able to articulate it, but it's in the back of the head of like, I know there's something I should be doing. I know I should be there's a way to have a better life, and I know it's out there. I just got to come across it. And so podcasts like this is a major way to do that, have that awareness. And then number two, being examples. I feel like that is one of the best things we as humans can be to this world, is be an example. Oftentimes I feel like a lot of us like to go out and tell people what to do, and in so many ways that can be a turnoff, because if it's like parents. I'll use parents for an example, parents as an example, to be an example, ironically. But parents oftentimes tell their kids to do things. They don't show them how to do those things. So a parent will tell a kid, you need to save money, but they won't save money. You need to eat healthy, but they're not eating healthy. You need to read books, but the parent isn't reading books. So how do you expect your kid to follow these values and these rules and boundaries and things that you want them to have when you're not an example of that? And I feel like that is one of the most important things to do. It's like, you can't it's hard to come out in the world and tell someone you should do this, you should live this way, you should act this way, you should be this way, if you're not able to show them examples of how does that living that way and following the things you're telling me to do benefit me in my life. And so, if I can't see it in your life or lives of people around you, people are talking about it, it's going to be hard for me to build up that motivation and that courage and be empowered and inspired by the things you're saying when you're not practicing it or doing it, And so I feel like that's another major way. Just continue to be examples of people. And, one of my favorite things that I've seen, it says when the student is ready, the teacher or the lesson will find them.
Right. It's kind of like, I think I heard Barack Obama say, like, be the change you want to see.
Exactly. Yes.
Basically, starts with you, right? Starts with you. And also being in the lines that we're both veterans, right? And then you want to promote self-love and self-growth and financial literacy. I do know that a lot of veterans become homeless, even though they've been trained, they were successful at one point. Do you think that has something to do with maybe the way they were raised, or maybe something that happened to them, or maybe they lost some of the self-love or the self-growth somewhere in there? What do you think?
Oh, that's a great question. And there's so many ways I can answer that. And so I guess number one, I would do my best to not go political, though systemically it is unfortunate the way our veterans are treated. Only 1% of the military, only 1% of the U.S. population ever serves in the military. That is less than if you think about that number wise, there's hundreds of millions of people in the U.S. and only 1% serves in the military. And what we're seeing is the fact that our government is not willing to take care of that 1% of the population who serves. Because if you ask me, I truly feel like as a veteran, especially anyone veteran who's going to combat, but just veterans in general, you're signing up to risk your life for a country. Meaning and obviously there's so many veterans who haven't made it back. So many veterans that come back with PTSD. So many veterans that come back scarred for life with wounds and things like that. And they're still expected to go work and be members of the society. So I feel like number one, like they should do a better job. Like those people should never have to work a day again in their life, especially going to another country, risking your life and losing friends along the way. And then being told, oh, by the way, when you come back, good luck, go find a job, I feel like that's that. So I won't go too deep into that, but I just really feel like they need to do a better job of taking care of the individuals that sign up to put their lives on the line to save this country and keep this country flourishing and growing and going the way it is, because presidents get $400,000 salary annually for the rest of their life just for 4 years. For 4 years of being a president, you get $400,000 a year for the rest of your life. But a veteran who risked their life for 20 years serving this country, they get here's a check, hopefully you got to fight to get disability. Like pray to God. Like I know veterans that can barely walk that's on like 50% disability. And so it's like, they done risk their life for this country and they get slaps on the wrist. So I feel like that's one of the major keys, because it's hard to come back and be an individual of society when you have PTSD from seeing bombs and murders and not only seeing it, but training for it. That's why I said like we do a lot of training on my ship. Like we actively train for war. Like that in itself is traumatizing because like your whole time, yeah, you're training for something, but you're mentally being prepared to understand, okay, if I'm training for this, that means it can happen. If I'm actively like we're shooting guns off of our ship, that means somebody can come shoot at us. So when you leave that, like a lot of people, that's where PTSD stems from. It stems from the training and the actions because you're mentally preparing yourself for war constantly over and over. So when you leave the military, you know just how realistic a war is because you remember how much training I had to do when I was in the military. So you already struggle with PTSD and then you're trying to come back into society and be a normal member of society and you're trying to fit in and function and you can't because you see so many people just moving through life like carelessly and lollygagging and things like that. So that already takes away your attention and span and things of that nature. And then another aspect of the military, like you say, they don't teach personal growth. They don't teach self-love. They don't teach financial literacy. They tell you those things and they say, hey, there's resources, go find it. Oh, you got to dig through 30 different books to find which person person you can email and say, hey, can you teach me something? Yeah, they have the resources are there, but it's not organized. It's not given to everyone, and you have to go find it yourself. No one's going to come to you and say, hey, by the way, after 20 years, you're going to be still having to look for a job, or you might get hurt in 5 years and you're going to have to go leave and look for a job. Nobody tells you those things. You have to go seek out those things and find mentors. And it's I was on another podcast. It was called Raising Kings. And she asked me if I thought single mothers should send their sons to the military for discipline. And I told her no, because in the military, you don't get discipline. You have to seek out mentors, because just like you can find a good mentor who's going to teach you this is the things you need to know in life as a military person, and you can find those, you can also find bad mentors who have 4 and 5 different wives and girlfriends and drink every weekend and party and turn up and do all the wrong things. All of that's in the military. So it is like a pool of so many different races, religions, individuals, entities who are at all aspects of life, and you have the good and the bad. And so, outside of signing up, going outside of putting on that uniform and going to work, you're still an individual. You're still a human of society, learning all of the bad things, learning all of the good things. And so I feel like it is a huge, I feel like, so when military veterans leave, and I know that was a long-winded way to come back to the unfortunate homelessness of military veterans, but in actuality, it's because they're just working another job. It's just a more riskier job that they're working. They're not getting life lessons and being taught things that they need to know for when they get out of the military. It's just like, hey, while you're in the military, we're going to take care of you. You're going to have what you need. As long as you put on that uniform and go risk your life, we're going to give you what you need. But when you get out, good luck. I hope you took the time to, put in the work.
So basically what you're saying is that in the military, you learn how to follow rules and how to do what you're told, but you're not really learning the basics of self-love, self-growth, and literacy, like financial literacy. So that's what you're saying, that you're good while you're in, because you're in a system. And then once you're out of this system, if you didn't learn how to apply it or how to do this on your own, you're done.
Exactly.
Especially after 20 years of, think about it. If you join at 18 and you do 20 years, you come out almost 40, 38, 40 years of age. And this is all you've known your whole life. To then now try to go back and fit into society and then do all of this stuff on your own. Yeah, we go through different places, but everywhere you go, you have a system there that's already set out for you. So then you go out and then try to manage your money, your life, your everything. I could see how that could be a factor into you falling into that part of society of being homeless. Well, that is what message would you like to give the viewers or my listeners today that they can take with them? First of all, I really appreciate you coming on today. I really love that I connected with you, which we did connect through social media to bring you on. I like to connect with other veterans, especially right here in Florida, so that you can bring us a wealth of information of your own experiences of what you learned. So what would you like to give the audience or leave them with today?
Of course. And thank you so much for having me. I truly appreciate it. And, especially our veteran community, there's so many, people that risk their life for this country. And, if we can find ways to help treat them better and be better and just, show them that they're appreciated, I think there's a lot of value in that. Ultimately, I guess to leave the listeners with is, like I said, find your values, before going out into the world. Take a moment and breathe and sit down and ask yourself, what do I value? What do I value most? Ask yourself those questions. That way, when you wake up every day, when you're making these decisions, you're understanding that if a decision isn't in alignment with my values, then I probably shouldn't make that decision. And it's not saying that, every time you're not going to make that decision, you still might make it, but at least you'll be able to go back and reflect, okay, I made that decision, but it wasn't really in alignment with what things I value in life. And so I would say take that, self-love, personal growth, financial literacy. If you want to, take those, copy those, feel free. I feel like those are so basic and generic, but they encompass such a broad range of topics for life that's why I took those and I'm just running with them.
Now that's awesome. That's lovely. Thank you, Ashton. I have another question before I let you go. It's the name of your podcast is Pura Vida, which is in Spanish mean pure
life.
Pure Life.
Pura
Where
Vida.
do you,
It's Pura Vida Wealth.
yeah, how do you come up with this name and why in Spanish?
Of course. So I came up with Pura Vida Wealth podcast when I was in Costa Rica. So it used to be called the A1 Lifestyle Podcast, but I rebranded it because when I went to Costa Rica, that's where I got engaged at. And I went there last year and I got engaged. But while we were there, everybody kept saying Pura Vida, Pura Vida. Like everyone, like every you get out of a taxi, Pura Vida, or you'll buy something, or they like, instead of saying goodbye, they would say Pura Vida. And then we asked them what it meant, and it was like, it means pure life. And for me, I felt like it resonated with me so well because that's where at the point in my life I feel like I'm at, where I just want to have a pure life. You know, I want to be happy. I want to have joy. I want to just, you know, do the things that bring a lot of value. And I feel like it lines up perfectly, you know, with the value. So Pure Vida Wealth, you got the self-love, you got the personal growth, and you got the financial literacy. You know, pure life. You're living a pure life. You're loving yourself. You have these values. You're growing mentally, and then you're adding on that financial literacy portion. I feel like it just made a lot of sense.
Oh, no, this is awesome. This is awesome. I love it. Ashton, anyone want to get a hold of you or go to your podcast or just get connected with you because you guys just jog, where can they find you?
Awesome. So you can find me everywhere: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube at Ashton Young. And then you can also find me anywhere at Pura Vida Wealth Podcast. So PURAVIDA Wealth. If you just search that in Google, all of my social media handles and Spotify will come up. I'm on Instagram, Facebook. Feel free to DM me, reach out to me, connect with me. I'm always open to connecting with so many individuals like myself and others that are in alignment and just want to live pure lives, you know, want to grow, want to go farther in life and just, you know, be the best versions of ourselves that we can be.
There you go, guys. Ashton Young with Pura Vida Wealth. Thank you so much for coming. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Have a good day and have a good weekend. See you again next week, Sky. Bye.
Take care.
Real quick, calling all Doral professionals, entrepreneurs, and community influencers. Are you ready to showcase your business, share your knowledge and experience with our engaged audience? Building Connections Doral Talks invites you to become a guest speaker on our podcast. Share your unique perspectives and inspiring stories with our listeners. We believe in the power of your voice in shaping the conversations right here in Doral. Click the link below to submit your information and be part of our next episode. Join us in building connections, sharing knowledge, and growing together. Don't miss this opportunity to be a featured guest on Building Connections Doral Talks. Tune in, connect, share, and grow together with Building Connections Doral Talks, reshaping the way we engage with the diverse voices of Doral, one guest at a time. Doral Talks, your voice, our community. Click the link now on the show notes, the screen, or in the comments below, or just scan the QR code to submit your information as a guest. I hope to see you soon. See you in the next podcast. Bye.